Okay, so you're thinking about reading Onyx Storm,
Uh-huh.
the latest book in Rebecca Yarros' dragon-filled Empyrean series.
Yeah.
And you're wondering,
Yeah.
is the hype real?
Mhm.
Is this book even worth my time?
Yeah.
Well, today, we are diving deep into
Yes.
the good, the bad, and the very fiery opinions surrounding this one.
And let me tell you, the verdict is messy.
Oh, messy.
Onyx Storm is a divisive book.
Okay?
Some readers are absolutely hooked,
Right.
while others are calling it a major disappointment.
Ooh, a book that's sparking debates. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's what we like.
Sounds like my kind of deep dive.
Exactly.
So for those of us who haven't caught up yet,
Right.
what's the main storyline of Onyx Storm?
Okay, so we pick up where Iron Flame left off.
Okay.
Violet and Zaydin are on a quest to find a cure for his Venin affliction,
Okay.
which is basically this magical poison that's slowly killing him.
Right, right.
And to add to the drama,
Of course.
they're also searching for Undana's lost dragon family who hold the key to saving, well, everyone.
Okay, so high-stakes magical poisons and a little dash of family drama.
Yeah.
Sounds like a recipe for a page-turner to me.
Right.
But I have to ask, what's with all the negative reviews?
Uh,
What are people finding so disappointing about this book?
One of the biggest criticisms is the pacing.
Okay.
A lot of readers felt that the book was bogged down by unnecessary travel sequences and repetitive romantic angst.
Okay.
There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of will they, won't they, and some readers found it a little tedious.
Tedious. But this is a book about dragons. How can
Well,
you get bored with dragons?
you'd be surprised some reviewers actually felt that the dragon scenes themselves
Oh, wow.
were less majestic, less awe-inspiring compared to the previous books.
Huh, interesting.
It's almost like the dragons got sidelined for the romance.
So maybe not the high-flying dragon action that we were all hoping for.
Right.
But I am still curious, what about the humor?
Yeah.
I've heard that this series has its share of funny moments.
Oh, for sure. The humor is definitely a bright spot.
Okay,
Characters like Riddock,
okay.
who is this mischievous and quick-witted dragon,
Uh-huh.
consistently brings the laughs.
Nice.
And even Violet and Zaydin have their moments of witty banter amidst all the drama.
Okay, so a few chuckles sprinkled in
Yeah.
to lighten the mood.
Exactly.
But let's talk about the heart of it, all the romance.
Right.
The first two books were sizzling.
Yeah.
Is the Zaydin and Violet saga still soaring in Onyx Storm?
That's where things get really divisive.
Okay.
Some readers love the intense connection between Zaydin and Violet.
Uh-huh.
They find their interactions passionate and heartwarming.
Right.
But others felt that the romance had lost its spark,
Okay.
that it became repetitive and even a little possessive.
Possessive. That's not a word you really want to associate with a romantic relationship.
No, not at all.
What exactly are people taking issue with?
So one specific example
Yeah.
that kept popping up in the reviews was Violet's constant use of the word mine in reference to Zaydin.
Okay.
While it might have been intended to show her deep love for him,
Right.
it came across as a little controlling and even creepy to some readers.
Yeah. Yikes. That's not exactly romantic.
No.
It sounds like the author maybe went a little overboard trying to emphasize their connection.
It seems that way.
And that kind of ties into another criticism
Yeah.
about the writing style in general.
Okay.
Some reviewers found it simplistic,
Uh-huh.
even a bit clunky, with an over-reliance on telling rather than showing.
Right.
One reviewer I saw even compared the writing to a first grader's homework.
Ouch. That's got to sting a little bit.
So not exactly winning awards for prose then.
No, not really.
And to make matters worse, some reviewers felt that the book relied too heavily on modern slang and internet lingo,
Right.
which kind of jarred with the fantasy setting.
Yeah.
It just made the dialogues feel inauthentic.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Okay, so we got pacing issues,
Mm-hmm.
we got a possessive romance,
Yep.
and some questionable writing choices.
Uh-huh.
I'm starting to see why this book is getting such mixed reviews.
But we do have to remember that there are still plenty of readers who loved Onyx Storm.
Right, of course.
They were captivated by the world, the characters, and the overarching plot.
Uh-huh.
It's a complex book with a lot to offer,
Yeah.
and ultimately, whether you enjoy it or not comes down to personal preference.
That's true. Personal taste is everything when it comes to books.
It really is.
But before we get into what those preferences might be,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at the actual content of Onyx Storm.
Okay, let's dive into the nitty-gritty
All right.
of what's happening in this book and why some readers are finding it problematic.
Okay.
One major point of contention is the constant back and forth over whether Aiden will succumb to his Venin affliction.
Right.
It felt like a recycled plot device.
Okay.
Just rehashing the same conflict from Iron Flame.
Ah, the dreaded recycled plot line.
Yeah.
Never a good sign. Are there any other examples of this kind of repetition?
Actually, yes, the ending itself
Okay.
has drawn comparisons to Iron Flame.
Oh, no.
Both books end on a very similar cliffhanger,
Oh, interesting.
leaving some readers feeling like the author was simply rehashing old tricks
Okay.
instead of pushing the story forward in a meaningful way.
So not only are we getting recycled plot points,
Right?
but even the cliffhangers are getting repetitive.
It seems like it.
That's not exactly encouraging.
No, it's not.
And this is where comparisons to other popular fantasy romance series come into play.
Okay.
Some reviewers felt that Onyx Storm relied too heavily on familiar tropes,
Yeah.
the chosen one narrative, the overprotective alpha male,
Right.
the constant declarations of love and desire,
Uh-huh.
without adding anything new or unique to the genre.
Yeah, that was a big criticism.
Interesting. So it sounds like Onyx Storm might be falling into the trap of following trends rather than forging its own path.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Are there any specific series that it's being compared to?
The most common comparisons are to Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series
Okay.
and Jennifer L. Armentrout's From Blood and Ash.
Okay.
Both series feature strong female protagonists,
Mm-hmm.
powerful love interests,
Right.
and intricate fantasy worlds.
Uh-huh.
But what sets them apart is their unique voice
Okay.
and their ability to subvert expectations. Something that some readers felt was missing from Onyx Storm.
So we've got a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, we do.
We've got repetitive plot lines,
Mm-hmm.
uninspired writing,
Right.
comparisons to some major heavy hitters in the fantasy romance genre.
Right.
Onyx Storm, to read or not to read?
Right.
That is the question.
The big question.
And so far, I'm getting mixed signals.
Yeah.
Is this a book that's so bad it's good?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just plain bad?
That's what we're going to try to answer.
Help me out here.
I think that's the question that we'll be tackling in part 2 of this deep dive.
Okay, sounds good to me.
We'll explore those diverging opinions,
Right.
dissect those comparisons to other fantasy romance powerhouses,
Perfect.
and see if we can help you figure out if Onyx Storm is truly worth your precious reading time.
We'll be back in a flash with more insights, more analysis,
Yeah,
and hopefully a clearer picture of what Onyx Storm has to offer.
we'll see if we can get there.
Stay tuned.
See you next time. Welcome back.
You mentioned comparisons to Maas and Armentrout,
Yeah,
two heavy hitters in fantasy romance.
right.
Are those comparisons really justified?
Okay.
Or is Onyx Storm being unfairly judged here?
Well, let's unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
Maas, for example, excels at creating these intricate worlds
Uh-huh.
with complex political systems and lore.
Uh.
Onyx Storm does attempt to expand on the Empyrean world,
Okay.
but some readers felt that it lacked the depth and nuance of Maas's work. It's
Uh-huh.
more like a brief travelogue than a truly immersive experience.
So you're saying the world building felt a little surface level.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's a shame because I really loved the rich mythology of the first two books.
Right, and then you have Armentrout,
Yeah.
who is known for her compelling characters
Okay.
and the sizzling chemistry between her leads.
Okay.
While Onyx Storm certainly has its steamy moments,
Uh-huh.
some readers felt that the relationship between Zaydin and Violet
Okay.
had become more about possessive declarations
Right.
than genuine emotional depth.
You mentioned those possessive declarations earlier.
Yeah.
Can you give me a specific example of what felt off about their dynamic?
Well, there's the scene where Violet's describing Zaydin
Yeah.
to another character.
Okay.
And she uses the phrase, "he's mine,"
Okay.
multiple times in a single paragraph.
Oh, wow.
It's meant to convey her fierce love for him.
Right.
But it came across as more controlling than romantic to a lot of readers,
Yeah.
you know?
I could see how that would be a turnoff for some readers.
Yeah.
It's a fine line between passionate love and possessive behavior.
Ex-
And it sounds like the book might have crossed it a few times.
A few times, yeah.
And this brings us back to the writing itself.
Right.
One of the key criticisms that we talked about earlier
Mm-hmm.
is the overuse of telling rather than showing.
Yeah.
For instance, instead of vividly portraying Zaydin's struggle with the Venin,
Mm-hmm.
the book often resorts to just telling us how much pain he's in,
Yeah.
how he's losing control, and so on.
Right.
It lacks that visceral impact that good writing can really achieve.
Exactly. You know,
Okay, so the writing isn't exactly subtle,
no, it's not.
but some readers might not mind that, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're just looking for a quick escapist read.
Exactly. Some readers might not be bothered
Yeah.
by a more straightforward writing style,
Right.
but for others, it can be a major deterrent.
Okay.
Especially when you compare it to authors like Maas and Armentrout,
Right.
who excel at creating these immersive experiences
Uh-huh.
through their use of vivid imagery and evocative language.
You keep mentioning Maas and Armentrout.
Well,
I'm starting to think I should just skip Onyx Storm and reread their books instead.
Well, let's not jump to conclusions just yet.
Okay.
Onyx Storm does have its redeeming qualities.
Okay, like what?
The humor, for instance, is still a strong point.
Okay.
Remember Reebok, the sassy dragon?
Yes.
He delivers some genuinely funny lines that had me chuckling out loud.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
A little bit of humor can go a long way.
Yeah.
Especially in a book with such heavy themes.
It can.
But what about the ending?
Yes, the ending.
We talked about those repetitive cliffhangers.
Uh-huh.
Did the ending at least offer any satisfying resolutions?
Unfortunately, no. The ending of Onyx Storm is arguably its most divisive element.
Wow, okay.
Some readers found it shocking and unexpected,
Okay.
while others felt it was predictable and unearned.
Interesting.
It relies heavily on a deus ex machina,
Oh, no.
which is a sudden and convenient plot device
Right.
to resolve the main conflict,
Yeah.
which left some readers feeling cheated.
A deus ex machina? That's never a good sign.
No.
It's like the author wrote themselves into a corner
Yeah,
and then pulled a magical rabbit out of a hat to escape.
pretty much.
And that's one of the reasons why some readers are drawing these unfavorable comparisons to Moz and Armentrout,
Yeah,
whose books typically feature more organically developed resolutions.
right.
So let's recap here.
Okay.
We've got surface-level world building. We've got a possessive romance,
Right.
clunky writing, repetitive plot points, an uninspired ending.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think this book might be more trouble than it's worth.
It's definitely a mixed bag. But remember, every reader brings their own preferences and expectations to a book.
That's true.
What falls flat for one person might resonate deeply with another.
You're right. You're right. Taste is subjective.
It is.
And there's no accounting for it.
No.
But I think we've given our listeners a pretty thorough overview
We have.
of the criticisms surrounding Onyx Storm.
Yes.
Now, the question is it worth the risk?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And ultimately, the decision is yours to make.
Okay.
But I think we can offer some guidance
Okay.
based on what we've discussed.
All right. So for our final act here,
Okay.
we'll lay it all out on the table.
All right.
Should our listeners dive into Onyx Storm?
Mm-hmm.
Or are there better options out there in this vast world of fantasy romance?
Let's break down the recommendations.
Okay.
Based on what we've learned about this book.
Okay, so we've journeyed through the fiery valleys of Onyx Storm.
Right.
And it's been a bumpy ride, to say the least.
It has.
But before we issue our final verdict here,
Right.
let's help our listeners figure out if this dragon-filled adventure is right for them.
Exactly. If you are a die-hard Empyrean fan
Right.
who needs to know what happens next regardless of the flaws, then by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
You'll probably find things to enjoy, but
Right.
for those on the fence, let's consider some alternatives based on what turned people off.
Okay, perfect. Because honestly, I'm starting to think my time might be better spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
So if the repetitive plot of Onyx Storm is a deal breaker, where should a reader turn instead?
If you crave intricate plots with twists and turns that'll keep you guessing,
Okay.
I highly recommend The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni.
Okay.
It's got that same Chosen One vibe,
Uh-huh.
but with far more clever plotting and a slow burn romance that actually pays off.
Ooh, The Prison Healer. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, what about those criticisms of the writing style?
Right.
If I'm looking for a book with beautiful prose
Yeah.
and truly immersive world building,
Okay.
what would you suggest?
For lyrical writing and a world that you can practically breathe,
Okay.
check out The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri.
Okay.
It's a fantasy romance set in a richly imagined world inspired by Indian culture.
Oh, wow.
The language is simply stunning.
Okay.
And the romance is slow burning and emotionally satisfying.
Okay, The Jasmine Throne is officially going on my TBR list.
It should be.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want a fun escapist read.
Right.
With a healthy dose of humor and action. Does that exist without the pitfalls of Onyx Storm?
Absolutely. For a lighthearted fantasy romance with witty banter and plenty of action,
Okay.
I can't recommend A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik enough.
Okay.
It's got a magical school setting,
All right.
a snarky protagonist, and a surprisingly sweet romance that develops organically amidst all the monster fighting.
All right, so we've got options for those seeking complex plots, beautiful writing, and lighthearted fun.
We do.
What's the final takeaway for our listener who's still debating Onyx Storm?
Here's the thing. Reading is deeply personal.
Right.
If the Empyrean world and characters hold a special place in my heart,
Yeah.
maybe those flaws won't bother you.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a book that pushes boundary, surprises you, and leaves you truly satisfied, you might want to explore some of the amazing alternatives out there.
Well said. And ultimately, the best way to find your next favorite book
Yes.
is to explore, experiment, and just trust your own instincts.
Exactly.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up our deep dive into Onyx Storm.
All right.
We hope we've armed you with the insights you need to make an informed decision about whether this book is right for you.
Absolutely.
Happy reading, everyone.
Happy reading.
And may your next literary adventure be filled with magic romance
It will be.
and truly unforgettable stories.